Greetings, friends. Welcome to another ministry here on the Victory Hour. This ministry is brought to you by the Lord's people at Clayville Assembly in Foster, Rhode Island. My name is Jim Gallagher. I am the pastor at Clayville Assembly. If anybody wants to contact me, you can. My email address is info@clayvilleassembly.com. info@clayvilleassembly.com. Be happy to hear from you. We're in a series now where we are taking the distinctives of dispensational theology and showing the errors of dispensational theology, but we're trying to handle them one at a time. So right now we're in a segment where we're dealing with their concept of a postponed kingdom. That's dispensationalism. It's really at the root of everything that they believe. The whole house of cards comes falling down if they don't embrace the idea of a postponed kingdom. Now, the postponed kingdom teaching that they give, not me, but they give, is one that says, well, Jesus came to give a kingdom to the children of Israel. That's why he came to this earth. Well, yes, he did come to establish his kingdom, but of course, I'm not thinking that Jesus intended it the way they're saying, but yes, Jesus did come in his first advent to lay the foundation that he might establish his messianic kingdom, without question. Now, the dispensationalists say, well, okay, that's true, but the Jews rejected him. And because they rejected him, the Lord withdrew his offer of a kingdom. I really should talk about that at some time. The Lord was never offering a kingdom. It was never up for grabs. I have to do that another time, maybe. But they say, the dispensationalists say, that Jesus was offering the kingdom to the Jews. But the Jews wouldn't have him. They wouldn't believe on him. They didn't want his kind of kingdom. Or whatever excuse they give, the Jews were rejecting Christ and his kingdom, which I don't deny the fact that Jews were rejecting Christ, and thus, by so doing, they were rejecting his kingdom. I agree with that. So they say, the dispensationalists say, well, so Jesus responded by withdrawing the offer of his kingdom. There was no offer. It's coming like a freight train, whether they want it or not. But they say, the dispensationalists say, that Jesus withdrew his offer of a kingdom and postponed the kingdom, and then went from plan A, the messianic kingdom on earth where Jesus would sit on David's throne. That's what they say Jesus was coming to do. But now, because they've rejected him, he's changed his mind, he's changed his tune, he withdrew the offer, leaves plan A, giving a kingdom to the Jews and ruling on the earth on the throne of David from Jerusalem, to postponing that whole kingdom. He's still going to do it. That'll happen in the millennium, we're told. So what's been happening in the last 2,000 years? There's no kingdom. Well, he established a mystery church age. So he went from plan A to plan B, took plan A and put it on hold, put it on ice until the future millennium. So right now we're in a mystery church age, which has nothing to do with Israel. But then the church will be raptured, and once the church is raptured, then he'll go back to his original plan to give the kingdom to the Jewish people, a messianic kingdom, and there's going to be a rebuilt temple, and there's going to be animal sacrifices, contrary to the gospel and everything the New Testament teaches. Well, this is dispensational theory. The postponed kingdom is at the heart of everything they believe. So I've been trying to show you that the kingdom was not postponed. We've looked at Daniel 2. We've looked at Matthew 24. Well, by the way, Jesus said in Matthew 24:34, this generation will not pass till all these things be fulfilled. And I made a point. I made a point in my last posting on YouTube. Well, we had a new posting, but it was just a sermon, a Memorial Day sermon from a year ago. That's what showed this past Monday. I've taken Monday off, Memorial Day, and so I played a Memorial Day sermon from Clayville Assembly from the previous year. But last week, the last time I made a submission on this series on the postponed kingdom of dispensationalism, we were talking about Matthew 24. And Matthew 24 said, Jesus said, this generation will not pass till all these things be fulfilled. What things? The things he's talking about in the Olivet Discourse leading up to verse 34. Part of what Jesus talked about was the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet. That would mean that the abomination of desolation would have to have come and gone in the first century. Because Jesus said, this generation will not pass till all these things be fulfilled. And he prophesied the abomination that would make Jerusalem desolate, as prophesied by Daniel. He quoted it as happening in that generation. So that means that the tribulation was in the first century. Yes, that's right. It was. Now, I had one fellow respond to me. Let's see. I got it up over here on my screen so I can look at it. Oh, he said, the Greek word, the word generation does not mean the lifetime of a person. Well, I know I said within their lifetime. I wasn't saying that's the definition of the word. But what generation does mean would make it end up being in the lifetime of those then living. And the reason I said lifetime is because Jesus said, there are some standing here which will not taste of death till you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. In other words, he's going to come in his kingdom within the lifetime of some of the people that were then living that he was speaking to. It was in that generation, so in their lifetime, see? Anyway, so this one fella in the comment section of the last edition on this postponed kingdom stuff, he says, the word generation does not mean the lifetime of a person. It means a race of people. Oh, okay. He says the Greek word genea means a certain genealogy of people. The generation that will not pass away is the Hebrew people or Israel. Now, come on. So, now this fella, he's writing, what appears to me, he's writing from a British Israelite perspective because he made a post after that saying King Charles was just coronated to sit on the throne of David. There has never been a time when there was not a person to sit on the throne of David. Well, what happened when they're in Babylonian captivity? And the Lord cursed the bloodline of Jehoiakim, or Jeconiah, same person, which was the line of kings that would descend from David, the royal line of the kings from David. There was no one on David's throne then, except impostors, and they were under the tyranny of Babylon. So it would be occupied perpetually through the person of Jesus Christ, because once Christ sits on his throne, he will never leave it or give it up. Go listen to my series on YouTube of Christ now sits on David's throne. This fella, or anybody like them, wouldn't have an answer for that. It's like irrefutable. But anyway, so he says King Charles is on the throne of David now. Really? And Israel today is many sovereign nations in the world. It really means, he means whitey. The United States of America is the leader among them. Where Ephraim, we're told, and then the United Kingdom of Britain, that's the Judah, you see. And they'll make some allowance for the Celtic people and the Germans and that kind of thing. That's what this stuff is. Don't ever mistake us with British Israelism. We have nothing to do with it. It's unscriptural. They're like Nazi wannabes, right? So we're developing a white master race. All right. So they say, well, wait a minute. We're the white master race. Us Christians that descended from the UK and from Germany and the South. Well, really, the UK, that's where the throne of David is, But it includes some of these other white areas like the United States. Yeah, I know. Herbert Armstrong and the rest of them. And there's others, you know. So anyway, so this fellow's coming from that perspective, which, I don't really care really too much to respond to that because not many people are going to go for that. And for good reason, biblical reason. But what he does say here in his complaint is something dispensationalists say, and that's why I'm interested in what this fellow said. He said the word I'll read it again. He said the word generation does not mean the lifetime of a person. It means a race of people. The Greek word genea, which is the word for generation in Matthew 24:34, this generation will not pass till all these things be fulfilled. He says the Greek word genea means a certain genealogy of people. The generation that will not pass away is the Hebrew people of Israel. So I responded to him. I'll read my response. Because I'm really responding to the dispensationalists who will say the same thing. And I said, you only give a partial definition of the word genea. Strong's defines genea this way: age, generation, nation, time. Time, that's not race, time. Thayer's Greek lexicon has multiple definitions because the word can have nuance of meanings and distinctions depending on its context. But one of the main definitions is the whole multitude of men living at the same time. So while the word can refer to a particular ethnic entity within the context, it can also do so within the context of an age or a generation, as is true in Matthew 24:34. Now, I'm really responding to the dispensationalists, just using this fella's, and I'm responding to this fella. Does genea mean race in Matthew 1:17? Because that's the word used. I mean, it's in the plural, but it's the same word, genea. Let me read Matthew 1:17. He says it means race. Does it mean a period of time like we normally think of the word generation? Well, why does every Bible translate it as generation then? You can go look at 30 different translations. They're all going to translate it this generation. They don't translate it this race. Come on. And the dispensationalists use this as an excuse because they don't know what to do with Matthew 24:34 because they're futurists. Now, okay, I'll get to Matthew 1. Matthew 1:17. Now, when I read the word generation, it's the same word in Matthew 24:34, genea, except it's in the plural. So, all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. And from David until carrying away into Babylon are 14 generations. And from carrying away into Babylon unto Christ are 14 generations. Well, let's make the substitute this fellow would want us to make. So all the races from Abraham to David are 14 races. What? And from David until the carrying away of Babylon are 14 races. And from the carrying away into Babylon unto Christ are 14 races. So from Babylon to Christ, the Jews became, Irish, German, English, Chinese. I don't know what they're talking about. No, it means generation as you know it does. And the same thing is true in Matthew 24:34. Let me finish reading my reply. Does genea mean, I asked the question, does genea mean race in Matthew 1:17? So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. Race does not seem to fit. Do you really think Jesus was saying, quote, the Jewish race will continue up until the time that the temple is destroyed? Because that's what he's talking about in Matthew 24. Not one stone left upon another. Do you really think it means the Jewish race, this generation will not pass till all these things be fulfilled? Do you really think it means the Jewish race will continue up until the time the temple is destroyed? Well, that would be a no-brainer. Who would you expect to be inhabiting Jerusalem? Not much of a prophetic insight in that kind of observation, if that is what Jesus was really saying. So he's saying it's this race will continue. So the Jewish race will continue until he comes to destroy Jerusalem? I mean, that's like saying if God made a prophecy, he's going to destroy Ireland. Well, the Irish people will continue to exist until the Lord destroys Ireland. Well, kind of duh. I mean, are these the kind of prophecies that Jesus gives? No, maybe some huckster charismatic will give you something like that. I predict that there's going to be future wars. Yeah, okay. Really insightful. Thanks for the prophecy. Well, Jesus doesn't do that. Let's see, I continue. No, Jesus was saying that, quote, this generation of Jews, because he is talking about the Jewish nation, there's no question, this generation of Jews will not pass away until all these things are fulfilled. It is as plain as the English translation is. And then I threw this in for the British Israelite fellow. Besides, your white British Israelism is just not going to fly. It is utterly unscriptural. Come on, do you really think that King Charles sits on David's throne? Chucky is not Israel's Messiah. Jesus Christ is. That is, he is the Messiah of the true Israel of God, which is made up of Jew and Gentile, male and female, bond and free, not England and the United States. I'm not interested in arguing with British Israelites. But you see, his argument that generation in Matthew 24:34 doesn't mean generation, it doesn't hold water. And if I remember correctly, Schofield even lies about the Greek word that undergirds generation. He uses a cousin word, but he uses the wrong word intentionally to deceive people, to get them to think that. It's bad. It's rough out there. I do not usually respond much to critics on my YouTube. Once in a while I will. But I can't minister to the whole world, which, YouTube brings you out to the whole world. I'm a busy fella. But once in a while, I'm going to respond to something if it's, I feel it's going to be profitable. And truthfully, I got to think to go back and look at the comments after, because I just keep rolling because I'm doing a lot, okay? So I wanted to get that out of the way. So the dispensationalists, because I'm talking about dispensationalism, not British Israelism. I want to get that out of the way so we can, I wanted to direct those thoughts to the dispensationalists, because that's who I'm talking to. And I'm not trying to be unkind to the dispensationalists. I know, I keep saying this, I can speak in strong terms because the thoughts that we're arguing captivate my mind. And I know the damage that some of these errors can do to people, and they don't realize the damage that has taken place. And that's why they run into brick walls when it comes to reading certain passages of Scripture. So I just want to really try and help them. Look, I was mistaken too about Israel in the past, and I had to wake up, and I'm hoping that some can too. So, is the kingdom postponed? No. So, let's give you another example. I don't know how much time I got. Well, we'll see what we can do. Matthew 21. Is the kingdom postponed as the dispensationalists suggest? Well, I would suggest to you, no, it isn't. The kingdom was not postponed. It would come in that generation. It wouldn't come in that race. It would come in that generation. Oh, by the way, there's another... I'm going to take all my time talking about this. But I think it's kind of important for the dispensationalists. Where was it? Matthew 23. Yeah, I was looking it up. I can't remember if... well, you know what? I've already made my point. Let's go to Matthew 21. I could do a little thing on generation. But if I'm tempted to do it now, I'll never get to this. Matthew 21. Matthew 21. Maybe I'll still do a thing on this generation and the word Genia and the lies of Schofield about Guinea, switching the word, the old bait and switch trick of Cyrus Ingerson Schofield. Well, Matthew 21. Jesus tells a parable. Let's read it. Here another parable. There was a certain householder which planted a vineyard and hedged it round about, and digged a winepress in it, and built a tower, and let it out to husbandmen, and went into a far country. And when the time of the fruit drew near, he sent his servants to the husbandmen, that they might receive the fruits of it. And the husbandman took his servants, and beat one, and killed another, and stoned another. And he sent other servants more than the first, and they did unto them likewise. But last of all he sent unto them his son, saying, They will reverence my son. But when the husbandmen saw the son, they said among themselves, This is the heir. Come, let us kill him, and let us seize on his inheritance. And they caught him and cast him out of the vineyard and slew him. When the Lord therefore of the vineyard cometh, what will he do unto those husbandmen? Well, the Jews respond to Jesus. They say unto him, He will miserably destroy those wicked men, and will let out his vineyard unto other husbandmen, which shall render him the fruits in their seasons. Ah, well put, gentlemen. Well, Jesus responds to them. Jesus saith unto them, Did ye never read in the Scriptures, the stone which the builders rejected? The same is the head of the corner. This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Therefore say I unto you, the kingdom of God shall be taken from you, and given to a nation bringing forth the fruits thereof. And whosoever shall fall on this stone shall be broken, and on whomsoever it shall fall, it will grind him to powder. And when the chief priests and Pharisees had heard his parables, they perceived that he spake of them. Yes. When they sought to lay hands on him, they feared the multitude, because they took him for a prophet. Now, I'm not going to have time to go through this parable today. I wanted to read it in its entirety. I didn't want you to think I'm going to take anything out of context. I wanted you to hear it as a whole. I would hope that many of you, just listening to that parable, would say, hey, wait a minute now. That parable is talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, it is. And the kingdom's going to be taken from them and given to another nation. Not postponed, given to someone else. He took it from them in 70 AD at the destruction of Jerusalem through Titus and the Roman armies, which was the arm of God's indignation, the arm of Christ's indignation. And he destroyed the temple so that not one stone was left upon the other, despite the smoke in your eyes Wailing Wall story. And it all happened in the generation Jesus said it would. Not within the race Jesus said it would. It happened in the generation Jesus said it would. So if he takes the kingdom from them and he gives it to somebody else, he isn't giving it to them thousands of years. So I take the kingdom from you and I'll give it to somebody else. What, thousands of years in the future? We're still waiting for that kingdom to go to somebody else? No. And that's dispensational theology. Now, some of you may be questioning, and by the way, the British Israelites, I might as well throw this in, seeing I brought them up earlier. The British Israelites like, yeah, well, it was taken from them and given to a nation bringing forth the fruits thereof. And so, well, they don't even really believe that. What they say is, well, the Jewish nation and the 10 tribes migrated. They went over to England. They came over on the Mayflower. They came over to America. So we are ethnically the 10 tribes of Israel, as is true, we're told, of the British. So it wasn't really taken from them and given to another nation. But what Jesus says is taken from you and given to a nation bringing forth the fruits thereof. Now, he's going to take it from Israel to give it to Israel. He's going to take it from dead Antichrist Israel to give it to the true Israel of God. Now, I know so much of this sounds foreign to the ears of people who have been weaned on dispensationalism. So I know there's a lot to overcome here. So I'm just kind of giving the broad-based argument that I'm making here. The kingdom was taken from them within the generation, Jesus said. And it was given to another nation, bringing forth the fruits thereof. It was given to Israel under the new covenant. He killed off old covenant Israel. He divorced and killed his bride, his wife, because she was the mother of all harlots, the adulteress. But then, as the Old Testament's prophets prophesied, he would raise Israel from the dead and marry her again. He raised her from the dead. Look at the day of Pentecost. All these Jews coming to Christ. Jews from every nation under heaven. And it spread to not just Judah, but to all the tribes. Now we have Israel restored under the new covenant. And the mystery of the gospel is the Gentiles are added to their number by believing on the Hebrew Messiah and become fellow heirs with them. In other words, it's what most people call the church. The kingdom of God was taken from Old Covenant Israel, if it given to New Covenant Israel, the quote-unquote church. Wow. And that's made up of Jew and Gentile, male and female, bond and free, not America and England. And the dispensationalists are way off the mark by saying that the kingdom's postponed. He's just going to give it back to the Jewish people thousands of years in the future. No, this passage is teaching it wasn't postponed. And so, but I got to prove this passage because I know, well, everything I'm saying, it might be I'm going too hard and too fast for it to be believable to people who haven't been weaned on these basic truths, and they've been their mind's been saturated with the precepts of dispensationalism, so it's hard to compute what I'm saying. So I want to go through, next time, we'll go through this parable nice and slow. We'll see the mechanics of it. We'll examine it carefully. I'm speaking in broad terms. And we're going to see that God's covenant people is Israel under the new covenant, which was made up of the 3,000 Jews saved in the day of Pentecost, the 5,000 Jews saved a chapter or two later, and Cornelius. And you and I, if we believe on Christ, we're part of that holy nation. You have read Romans 11, haven't you? Oh, I know, the dispensationalists. They think, well, how can you quote Romans 11? That's in our camp. Oh, no. When we get to the series on the Israel of God, we'll talk about that. That really belongs in the dispensational series. But see, I don't want to be talking about dispensationalism per se forever. But we got a lot more to talk about. So next time we come together, we're going to come back to Matthew 21. Study Matthew 21. Read the component parts. Here's your homework assignment. Read the component parts. Ask yourself, what is Jesus saying? And what is the implications of what he's saying for the Jewish nation? And we'll come back next time and we'll talk about it. The errors of dispensationalism. The kingdom was not postponed. It's here. It's the one we're born again into. Look, I've got to go. let me thank you for watching and for listening. Jim Gallagher reminding you in the words of our blessed Lord and Savior, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free."